So, here we are. The return of the Mac, baby. You know that I'll be back. When I cried and say, yes I do. But we'll see what happens. If Conor McGregor makes it into the cage, I think it's a very interesting fight. If he doesn't, then I don't really know what they're going to do. I guess Patty versus Max, which is a nightmare, and I don't want to see it. I'm sure you guys don't want to see it either. But let's talk about Conor versus Max, too. These guys have fought before. They fought when they were both babies before either of their title shots or reigns. It was a true prospect versus prospect fight at the time. Everybody knew it. And, here we are 15 years later. It feels like it's been 15 years. Let me double check that because I know that it was before Reebok. I know that. I know it was before Reebok. It was 2013. 13 years in the making, this rematch. And we're going to see how it shakes out, I think there's a few question marks coming into here. Obviously, number one being, will Conor make it to the fight? Secondly, will he look good? This is at welterweight. Max Holloway's never fought at welterweight. Conor's fought at welterweight a couple times against lightweights, but still, his body is definitely huge now. He took a lot of steroids coming off of that leg injury, which, that's exactly what steroids are for, to recover. But, we'll see how it shakes out in the octagon. Now, at 170, I really can't imagine. Let's say that everything works out, let's get it out the way, that the fight goes through, that Conor makes it to the ring, these guys square off, nobody gets injured on the first kick or whatever, At 170, you got to imagine that with the added muscle, with the added mass, Conor's cardio, which has never been good, is not going to be that good. Holloway is going to be taking bigger punches than he's ever taken. He got shook up by Taporia at 145. He cut a lot of weight to get there. You got to figure he's not cutting any weight to make it to 170, so his chin is probably going to be very strong, but he's also going to be taking bigger shots than he's ever taken before from a bloated up, roided up Conor McGregor. So it's a very interesting matchup in that aspect. We haven't seen Holloway lose that chin yet. I mean, he got knocked out, of course, but he hasn't been getting dropped by errant shots or, slept. You know what I mean? Even in that knockout loss, he got dropped and then finished with ground and pound. It wasn't like we saw the lights go out, So I think the odds of a Conor one-shot KO in the first round are very slim. He can, however, probably wrestle better than Max. We saw Max in his last fight against Charles Oliveira get ran to the ground. Obviously, Oliveira is one of the best MMA wrestlers and grapplers we've ever seen. I think that is not controversial to say. Seeing him out-wrestle guys like Tony Ferguson and so many others on his way to the belt and after winning the belt. And, of course, his BJJ credentials go without being said. He has the most submissions in UFC history, He wasn't able to submit Holloway, but he was able to get a buttload of top control against him. Conor wrestled Max in the first fight, and he was able to control him on the ground. Over the years, obviously, both guys have changed a lot. But I think that size advantage, that wrestling advantage might still be there for Conor. I don't know if people are really talking about this, but it's a very possible outcome that Conor can wrestle in this matchup. I just really am struggling to see a way for Conor to win this fight. I think it's hard for me to picture Holloway getting slept. It's hard for me to picture Holloway getting knocked out or even really hurt or rocked in this fight. I think Conor has regressed a lot, or maybe just stagnated in terms of his MMA approach. As we saw in the Poirier fights, it was a lot of the same boxing combinations over and over. He looked very rote in that fight. If he shows up in that form here, I think it's very, very likely that Holloway drags him into deep waters and finishes him in the third or fourth round. I'm leaning towards that style of fight here. I think Conor can have good success early when they're both cold. Holloway's always been somebody who warms up into the fight. His first round always looks worse than his third. So that is certainly a strategy for Conor here, is to try to win the first two rounds, take a couple rounds off, and then win the fifth or the fourth, like how he did against Diaz in their second fight. But I feel like Holloway's going to pour it on him in the third and fourth round, and I can see him really getting him out of there. Conor's always, famously had like 8 minutes of cardio. It's something that Eddie Alvarez brought up in their fight, or before their fight, something that Khabib showed when they fought. After that 8-minute mark, Conor falls off a cliff until he gets a second win in the fourth round, like we saw against Diaz. But, these are all fights that happened a decade ago. You know what I mean? So it's really hard to say that is what's to expect here. Fighters change, people change, and I will say that Conor is coming into this fight more focused than ever. That I've seen. in this like stage of his career. Against the Poirier fights, I guess he looked decent, but then you saw how much he melted down when he broke his leg. There was no check, etc., etc., and he got knocked out in the first fight. He turned from humble Mac to salty Mac. So I think coming in here being Big Mac, I'm not sure that I just don't see it working. I just feel Holloway's tough. He's more warm. He's fought more recently. He's got a good style to beat McGregor. I think at any point in their careers, besides when they first met, when McGregor was a more developed a more developed prospect at that point, he had already won the Cage Warriors belts, and Holloway was like 4-1, I think, at the time, maybe 5-1. At that point, Conor was the more developed guy, and he showed that with his wrestling game when he tore his knee. I just really don't expect Max to get knocked out in this fight. I don't expect Max to get knocked out in this fight, and I kind of feel like that's the only way that Conor can win this matchup is if he catches him cold. I just don't see it happening. I think Holloway's going to put a pace on him. I think he's going to be there in the fight. I think he's going to get in Conor's face and drain those energy reserves early and often. And by the third, fourth round, we're going to see Conor sucking for air and Max looking fresh and putting boxing combos on him, kicking him in the body, and eventually getting that, that TKO finish in the third or fourth. So give me Max. Let's go Max, baby. Maxi, baby. Get it done. Bring the belt back to Hawaii. I don't think they're fighting for a belt. It's just for bragging rights, but still. Let's go Max Holloway. I hope he gets it done. I think he deserves it, And that's not to say I don't like Conor. I kind of think it would be better for the sport here if Conor did win. I'm just happy for Max to get this payday either way. But, yeah, I think if Conor wins, it's better for the sport. I don't know where he goes from here, if he does get the win, or if he loses for that matter. I'm not sure where he goes from here. I guess another legacy fight. Maybe if he loses, he'll finally fight Michael Chandler. I don't know. That's an easy layup match for sure for McGregor. But yeah, I'm really excited for this fight, and I hope it happens. But let's go down the rest of the card because there are some really actually interesting fights on this card with divisional relevance. So next, let's go to the co-main event. We have Benoit Saint-Denis versus Paddy Pimblett. This is a great fight. I like this fight a lot for BSD, for Benoit Saint-Denis. I think he has a great shot here. Paddy is somebody who kind of gets by on being big and strong and good technical grappling skills. On the feet, he's a bit flappy. He doesn't throw very hard, and he has really bad defense. Benoit Saint-Denis, on the other hand, has really bad defense, but he throws really hard, and he has a granite chin. Both guys have really good chins. On the ground, I believe that Paddy has the better mat wrestling, but Benoit Saint-Denis has the better top control. I think Paddy has a better jiu-jitsu, but Benoit Saint-Denis is more of a force in terms of his wrestling prowess. He's a better wrestler. Paddy's a better grappler. So I think it's a very interesting fight. I think on the feet, Benoit Saint-Denis certainly has less tricks in the toolbox, but he packs way bigger of a punch. Yeah, I love this fight. I think this is a great matchup. I love this fight for both guys. Paddy can win this fight if he can outdog BSD, if he can, be slick on the outside for a round, and then third round, get him to the ground and kind of wear him down. BSD has shown a pretty bad gas tank. For BSD, you got to run through this guy, man. Don't let him get comfortable. Take the first round, put him on the ground, punch him in the face, put him against the cage, that kind of thing. Make it ugly. And BSD is really good at drawing guys into that fire. So I think he has a great chance here. I like Benoit's chances here. I think the winner is going to be right there for a title shot. Maybe the winner fights Arman. That would be really fun for either guy to see against Arman. I think Arman obviously deserves the shot right now, but it looks like they're going to go a different direction. I don't know what they're doing at the top of the division, but either way, regardless of what the next step is, on Saturday, I think this is a fantastic fight, and I truly believe that this is like a 60-40 matchup for BSD. I think the cardio is in Paddy's favor. I think the wrestling is in BSD's favor. The power is in BSD's favor, but the striking acumen, the technique in terms of being able to adjust your game plan is certainly on Paddy's side. Talk all the shit about him and that you want. I will. I always do. I've been a Paddy hater a lot, like every step of the way pretty much throughout his career. But the guy can really adjust his game depending on the fighter that he's fighting. I think the case in point is his fight against Justin Gaethje, where he was landing that uppercut over and over while Gaethje leaned off to the side. And that's just something that we haven't seen from Paddy throughout his career. It's something that he did for Gaethje. Against Benoit Saint-Denis, who is kind of the same guy every time we see him, that type of acumen, that type of adjustment can really be the difference maker when it comes down to the physical limitations and the physical prowess, you have to give the edge to Benoit. I don't see any two ways about it, you know. But like I said, he is a star that burns really bright early and then tends to fade in that third round, and that's where Paddy can get a lot of success in this fight. If Paddy can get to a top position in this matchup, especially in the late second round, in the early third round, we can definitely see his jiu-jitsu pull him to the mount and put down some hellacious ground and pound on Benoit Saint Denis, who's kind of a sitting duck when he's on bottom. We saw that against Renato Moicano. I believe it was Moicano. That kind of just beat him up on the ground. Moicano fucked him up with the jab, actually, if I'm not mistaken. But he got beat up on the ground as well in that fight. So, I mean, I think, you know, that's the game plan here. If you're Paddy, you have to try to sneak out the first round. If you sneak out the first round, I think Paddy does win the third round of this fight. Second round is going to be Benoit Saint Denis should win the first round, but if Paddy can somehow sneak the second or the first round out, he should win the third, and that should be his fight to win, you know? If you're Benoit Saint Denis, you're trying to smoke him. You're trying to get him out of there early, put the pressure on him, hit him hard in the face because his face is going to be right there with his chin up, and, you know, land that big left hand, get to the wrestling, and try to finish him on the ground or just keep the pace on him on the feet. We're going to see what happens. I'm really excited for it. I think it's a great fight, but there's other great fights to talk about here, so let's go down to the next one. We have another rematch here, Corey Sandhagen versus Mario Bautista. This is another rematch that is a decade in the making, and a really fun fight here. You know, it was a fun fight in the first one, and Sandhagen was able to get an early finish with a submission against Bautista when they first fought. That was a very long time ago. These guys are very different now. I do feel that Bautista has more in the tank at this point in his career than Sandhagen does. I think Sandhagen is kind of fallen off a cliff a little bit, you know. His technique is always great. He's always there, but I think he's never been a fast fighter, and I think now he's even slower than he's ever been. So I feel for Sandhagen. I do think that he still has some great tools in his toolbox to beat a guy like Mario Bautista, and I feel that Mario Bautista has added so much to his game since that first fight, particularly in his grappling style and his grappling game. And it pains me to say it, but I do think that Mario Bautista is going to get it done here this weekend. I think he's going to be able to put the pace on Sandhagen, who we've seen kind of gas out lately and, you know, end up on bottom position more than he ever wanted to. And we can see Mario Bautista employ that kind of game plan, similar to how he did against Vinicius Oliveira, and take this fight to the ground and kind of just make it a hellscape for Sandhagen. For Sandhagen, I think it's imperative that you keep this fight on the feet, stay on the outside, you know, land your kicks. When this fight goes to the ground, be the aggressor, try to get on top, because we've seen Bautista do a lot worse work on top than he does worse work on the bottom than he does on top. Bautista is a very good grappler. He's a very good wrestler these days, and I think that is the biggest improvement that's happened from this fight, from the first fight to this fight, is Bautista's grappling improvement. Sandhagen has had a huge career since then. He's fought for the belt twice. He's, fought number one contenders fights. He's fought legends of the sport. He's knocked out guys. He's been knocked out. Well, I don't think he's been knocked out, but he's knocked out guys. He's, been submitted. Bautista has also had some ups and downs since then, but largely mostly ups, losing to Umar Nurmagomedov and recently just beating Vinicius Oliveira again, or mentioning that again. So, I mean, it's a really interesting fight. I feel like Bautista's game is kind of coming to a head right now in terms of his athletic prowess and his technical game. And I feel like a guy like Sandhagen, who is so tough, who's always in there, who can test you in every phase of the fight, this can be a really great breakout performance for Mario Bautista in terms of getting a win back and also being able to show off the full breadth of his game. I feel Sandhagen is at that point right now where he's starting to drop off, and a guy like Bautista is exactly the kind of guy who can take advantage of that. You know, if Sandhagen loses this fight, I think I'd like to see him retire. You know, I don't think he has anything more to prove here. He's fought really a great career, and it seems clear to me that he's not going to get the title. So, maybe it's time to hang him up, but we'll see. We'll see. If he gets it done here, he's right there for the title shot. And, although he's lost to the top 3-4 guys in the division, I'd still love to see him and mix it up in there with a guy like Sean O'Malley. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. It's a really interesting fight, really fun top 5 bantamweight fight. I believe it should be both of these guys are in the top 5, if not 8 to 10 range. Yeah. Next, we have an awesome flyweight fight, too. I mean, you can't go wrong. If you take ranked fighters in lightweight, bantamweight, and flyweight and put them at the top of the bill here, you really can't go wrong with, fun matchups. And, I think that's a great strategy that the UFC is employing here. Brandon Royval versus Lonier Kavanaugh. Wow. I mean, I love this fight, and I think it's kind of really bad for Royval. Royval is coming off of a knockout loss to Manel Kape in a fight where, you know, the real task was to stay away from the power of Kape, and he was not able to do that for more than like 2.5 minutes. Lonier Kavanaugh here is a very fast fighter. He's a very hard puncher. And we just saw him beat the brakes off of Brandon Moreno for 5 rounds. He looked incredible in that fight. Really standout performance there from Kavanaugh, and a step up that he took on short notice, falling upwards after getting knocked out by Charles Johnson, as one expects at flyweight. I fear for Brandon Royval here. I mentioned that, but I fear for him because his chin is not what he used to be, man. This guy has kind of made a career off of being the tougher guy, being the bigger guy who can take the punch and land 3 or 4 or 5 punches while you land one big one and kind of drown you in that volume and cardio, survive on the ground, and then put a pace on you on the feet that you won't be able to keep up. The leaf blower approach, as the Heavy Hands boys, shout out to the Heavy Hands boys, as they've mentioned before, is one that is strong for Brandon Royval, which is kind of just like, I'm throwing these leaves in your face. What are you going to do? None of these punches are going to hurt, but they're all going to annoy you. It's kind of like being hit by a swarm of bees, you know? Lonier Kavanaugh, on the other hand, is a super technical boxer, a guy who waits for his moment and then explodes. And I think that moment's going to come sooner than later in this fight. And I just, I think prime versus prime is a fight that would have been really fun. But right now, where Brandon Royval's at in his career, being slept in that one shot against Manel Kape, I just don't like it for him. I think he took really bad damage in that Joshua Van fight, and he's had concussion problems for a long part of his career now. And I don't like this matchup for him. I think Kavanaugh gets it done by knockout in the first or second round. So give me Kavanaugh by knockout here. Next, you have King Green versus Terrence McKinney in a fight that really, you can say this about any Terrence McKinney fight, but this is a fight that can't be boring. You know what I mean? It's either going to be McKinney coming out here and smoking Bobby King Green in the first 2.5 minutes. This is what he does. This is McKinney's whole career. Look at his record, guys. Check out his record on Wikipedia or on Tapology or anywhere else, and scroll down and look at the fight time. I don't think he's ever made it past 1.5 rounds. At least not in the UFC. He's never made it past 1.5 rounds. If he doesn't finish his guy in the first 2 minutes, he gasses out and he gets finished in the next 2 or in the first minute of the second round. I don't expect that to change here. I think he either comes out here and finishes Bobby Green very early, which he can do in a couple different ways. Let's not act like he can only knock this guy out. He can also take down Bobby Green and force him into a submission or a face crank, or put him into a position on the ground where he can just lay onto him with the back mount punches like we saw he did against Damir Hadzovic. Terrence McKinney's made a career off of blasting guys out of the water early, and Bobby Green, in his most recent form, has looked like a guy who's very hard to blast out of the water early. I think Bobby Green has a very good chance of winning this fight. I think he can survive the first couple minutes. He's slicker than anybody McKinney's ever fought, but McKinney is so fast and Bobby Green's getting slower. He's a guy who relies on his timing rather than his speed, Bobby Green. Not that he's slow, but he has really good timing. If Green can survive 2 minutes, he will win this fight. But that's a big if he can survive those first 2 minutes, because Terrence is going to come at him hot. He's going to throw everything he has at him right off the bell. You can bet your bottom dollar that, So I'm hoping that, I think it would be funny either way. I think it would be a fun fight and a funny outcome either way. But I'm hoping that Bobby Green can get it done in the later half of the first round or in the beginning part of the second. It's really hard for me to shake off the feeling that McKinney's going to come out here hot and, throw a big left straight and go to a takedown, take him down and get to the back and either finish him with a face crank or pop him on the ground until the referee is forced to stop the fight. We've seen Green have a bad chin lately. He got slept by Mauricio Ruffy, but that spinning wheel kick was so fucking powerful. Like, how can he not get slept by that? McKinney doesn't really have those spinning kicks in his game, and it's not really something that, he needs here. He can kind of just catch Bobby with the hands or go to the grappling, like I said. I think McKinney first round submission or first round ground and pound KO is very, very, very live here. Bobby Green, on the other hand, if he can keep this fight, if he can keep defensively sound for the first 2 minutes, he should be able to sleep McKinney as McKinney gets tired, inevitably, in the next 45 seconds of the fight. So yeah, I love this fight. I think under 1.5 is the smartest pick you can do here. It's probably like minus 500, but it's free money, So yeah, let's go under 1.5 in that fight. All right, now this is the fight I've been thinking about all week. I've been thinking about it for months, and I just I really hope that I can manifest a Robert Whittaker victory here. But yeah, we got Robert Whittaker coming up to light heavyweight for his light heavyweight debut. The first time he's ever fought at 205 in his career. He started as a welterweight. I have a whole video on Robert Whittaker. He's one of my favorite fighters of all time. The Reaper, Bobby Knuckles. Check it out if you haven't already seen it. It's very long. It's very in-depth. I talk about his, come up on the Australian regional scene, his fights on Tough, his fights at welterweight, middleweight, going up to the belt, and the gauntlet that he had to go through to get to that belt, and how he lost it, and how he came back, and how he should have won the second Izzy fight. But I digress. Robert Whittaker has had a long, storied career at middleweight, and now he is going up to light heavyweight after having some real struggles with the weight cut in his last couple of fights down there, especially in that RDR fight. We saw him get really tired in that fight, which is something that's never been a problem for Rob. And, I think that was because of the weight cut. Here he draws Nikita Krylov. Nikita Krylov, if he is still the person that he says he is, conspiracy theorist, take out your tinfoil hat, this guy has a very bad chin these days, but he is very big for the division, for light heavyweight. He used to fight at heavyweight. He has, decent boxing, but like I said, again, he has a bad chin. He kind of leaves his chin hanging out there, and he gets hit a lot. He's very slow these days. It kind of feels, the more that I'm describing it, it kind of feels like light heavyweight Gerald Mearshart at this stage of his career. If Krylov can get this fight to the ground, if he can take down Bobby, which is something that his recent opponents have been able to do, RDR especially, but other guys have been able to take down Bobby, which is something we never saw early in his career, which is a true sign of aging, I think, and regression. But if he can get Bobby down, he should be able to at least hold him down or submit him at some point in this fight. However, and it's a big however, it's a big if, I think that Bobby is so much faster than Nikita Krylov on the feet. And although this is going to be one of the biggest guys he's ever fought, it's also one of the guys who at this weight class doesn't have the chin that he used to. And if Bobby can use that blistering speed that he had at middleweight, you got to figure lighter man skill. He's going up to light heavyweight. He's a former champion. We've always seen a divide between guys who've reached the top and defended the belt versus guys who have never gotten to that point. Championship level fighters versus guys who aren't. This reminds me a lot of Aljamain Sterling versus Calvin Kattar. I don't think that the wrestling is going to be a tool for Whittaker like it was for Sterling, but I think the striking, the boxing, the speed is going to be the big difference here. And I can see Bobby catching him with a left hook or an uppercut as he blitzes in and catches Krylov kind of sleeping a bit and hurting him bad and following him up and finishing him in the first round with a knockout. Let's go, Bobby Knuckles. I'm manifesting it. I really hope he gets it done. I think it would be a very storied win for him, and I hope he gets it done. Next, we have Gable Stevenson fighting Alicia Ellison in a gimme fight here for the alleged sexual offender, Gable Stevenson. We'll see what happens. I think this is a very easy fight for him to win. I think he should win it. But that being said, at this stage of his career, you never know what's going to happen to these guys when they're coming up like this. And if Gable does what he's supposed to do, he should get this guy out of here early. But he's also a relatively smart guy from what I've seen. And every minute, every second in the octagon is valuable experience. So if Gable can take this fight a little bit later, I think it's good for him. It's good for his career. But I just don't know if this dude can keep up Ellison. So give me Gable, probably first round, but it might be in the second. Then you have Cody Garbrandt versus Adrian Yanez in one of the hottest matchups of 2019. Adrian Yanez, man, I really wanted this guy to be big. I wanted him to be very popular and very successful in the bantamweight division. But he had a lot of trouble against guys like Jonathan Martinez. He had a lot of trouble against, I believe it was Mario Bautista, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just double check that. Was it Rob Font? Yeah, Rob Font, Jonathan Martinez, Daniel Marcos. He had a draw with Ricky Simone, and that fight should have been a Yanez victory. He looked really good in that fight. So I believe that Yanez has the better skills coming in here, or at least at this stage of his career. Garbrandt has looked washed for a long time, and not only washed in terms of physical, but washed in terms of, mental. I think he doesn't want to really be there anymore. It seems like these days he avoids the fight more than tries to make it happen, and that's just not something that's really feasible against a guy like Yanez who's going to pressure you the whole time. I think this is Yanez's fight to lose. I think he should knock out Garbrandt, but he could definitely win a decision. Yeah, I like Yanez in the spot. I think he looked great against Simone, and I hope he can get it done here. I think he deserves it. Let's go Yanez. Next, we got Luke Riley versus Kai Kamaka III. This is a very fun fight here. Luke Riley shown some ups and downs here in his UFC tenure. But at the end of the day, he has a very powerful punch and seems to have a very good chin. Kai Kamaka has also had ups and downs in his career, but more than anything, you can say that guy has a ton of heart. He never seems to stop going forward. He never seems to give up on himself. I'm a big fan of Kai Kamaka. I really hope that he can get it done. I'm not sure, though. I feel like this is a really tough fight for him. And, he had the UFC tenure early. He left the UFC, went to Bellator, went to PFL, had some pretty decent fights there. And now he's back in the UFC coming off of a victory over Dakota Hope, a very fun fight with Dakota Hope at that. And if he can draw that kind of firefight here with Luke Riley, I think he can kind of take him into deep water and put it on him as the fight goes on. Riley, a teammate of Paddy Pimblett, has a very similar balls-to-the-wall style, Liverpoolian style. Riley should win this fight. They want him to win this fight. But Kai Kamaka is exactly the kind of dog who can drag him into deep waters and make it an ugly fight. And that's the type of fight that seems Riley doesn't want. Or not that he doesn't want, but that he's not as good in as he thinks he is. And I think Kai has a great chance of the upset here. But there's a reason that they put this fight here, and that's to kind of boost up Luke Riley. So we'll see what happens. I think it's going to be a very fun fight, and it's one that I wouldn't bet on because there's not a lot of value on Riley, and the value on Kai, like I said, he has to have a lot of things going for him to win this fight. I think he can, but yeah, I think that's a good underdog stab, but it's not one that I'm going to take. Next, we have Tracy Cortez versus Kong Wang. This is an interesting fight because Kong Wang has really bad grappling, but very potent striking, and Tracy Cortez has really bad defense on the feet, but has a very tenacious wrestling game that, she can go to in this fight with great success. This is, again, kind of a crapshoot. I'm not going to bet on it, but I can see why people are picking Cortez here. I'm not sure who the favorite is. I would probably lean towards Cortez given the experience edge, but Kong Wang, again, she's looked like a world beater when she's on, and then when she's off, it's very easy to see how she can be beaten, and particularly it's with the wrestling game, and that is one of Cortez's strong suits. So, you got to imagine that Cortez has the path to victory here, and she's going to, press that advantage. But, we'll see what happens. I love this fight. I think it's a really fun fight, and it's a good one to have as the only women's fight. I think it's a prime showcase fight here. Next, you have Damian Penis versus Cesar Almeida. The Penis is back, and he is coming strong. He's hard. He's big, veiny. All right, let me stop with these jokes. I mean, these are bottom of the barrel here. Low brow, as low as the brow can get. But yeah, let's talk about the actual matchup here. This guy, Damian Penis, he is a really, really powerful striker. Most of his fights, every one of his fights, he hurts the other guy early. Cesar Almeida, a very talented glory kickboxer, and his chin is starting to go, man. He's slow, he's getting old, but he has great timing and great power in his punches. And if Damian leaves himself open while he comes forward, he can get counterpunched here like we saw Almeida do, literally with his back against the wall against Abdulrazak Alhassan. But Alhassan is as much of a glass cannon as anybody else, and I would put Cesar Almeida in that same boat. We haven't seen Penis really get hurt like that, but, like I said, he's a hot starter, and he hurts everybody. The only loss he has was because he threw a kick to the guy when his head was on the ground, or when he was on the ground, threw a kick to the head, and it was a DQ. So this guy's a world beater, very strong front runner, and he should be able to knock out Cesar Almeida in the first 2 rounds, probably in the first round, but we'll see what happens. Again, if he gets reckless coming in, Almeida can find that counter shot for sure, but I think either way this fight ends in a knockout for either guy, and I'm leaning towards the Penis. Next we have Farid Basharat taking on newcomer John Garza. It was supposed to be Basharat versus Ewing. It would have been an awesome fight. I'm hoping that he can get Garza out of there and they can rebuild that fight, because I would love to see Ewing take a 0. Next, you have Zachary Reese versus Brian Gondra. They're really trying to get Zachary Reese a victory here. I don't know what dirt this guy has on the UFC or what, but he's still in the UFC, and they're giving him easier fights. So either they like the guy or he has some kind of dirt on them. I don't know. But that should be a fun fight as long as it lasts. Brian Gondra does not look that good. Alessandro Costa versus Cody Durden. Fucking banger to open up the prelims with this flyweight fight. That was an awesome fight. Cody Durden coming off of a very, very tough and hardly fought win over Jafel Filo, where he was a huge underdog and got it done. Alessandro Costa, on the other hand, coming off of his own victory, where he was a big underdog against Matt Schnell. Oh, he wasn't an underdog there. That's right. He was supposed to knock out Matt Schnell, and he did. But yeah, this guy hits really hard, and Cody Durden can drag you into the deep water, especially with his wrestling experience. He's had a tough stretch in the UFC, losing to guys like Van Nascimento, Jose Ochoa, and Nam Jungle, Tumen Dembarral. Those are really good fighters. Those are guys that it's not hard to lose to. You know what I mean? Especially, obviously, Van, who's now the champion, and Ochoa, who has looked like an absolute world beater at flyweight. Nascimento, again, also a very good fighter, and so is Nam Jargal. So, no shame in the losses that Cody Durden has taken to this point. And in that last victory, he showed that he can pull it out and, beat that sumbitch over the head with it, So, I think this is a pretty easy fight to call here. Either it's going to be Costa getting him out of there with the explosiveness and the striking advantage early, or Durden taking this fight to the deep waters with his wrestling and his experience and kind of putting Costa in places that he hasn't been before. I love this fight. I think either way that it shakes out, it's going to be very fun to watch. So, great spot to open up the card here. All right, folks. Without further ado, let's go down our quick picks for the evening. In the main event, we are going to take Max Holloway by KO, rounds 2, 3, or 4. We're going to take Benoit Saint Denis in the co-main event. We're going to take Mario Bautista. We're going to take Lonier Kavanaugh by knockout. We're going to take under 1.5 rounds in the King Green fight. We're going to take Robert Whittaker by KO. We're going to take Gable Stevenson by finish early. Yeah, and I'll throw in Damian Penis by knockout first round. And you know what? Give me Adrian Yanez, too. We'll give you 9 picks this evening. That's right, 9. Read them and weep. We're going to go one more time. Holloway, rounds 2, 3, 4 KO. Benoit Saint Denis, moneyline. Mario Bautista, moneyline. Lonier Kavanaugh, KO. Under 1.5 in the King Green fight. Nikita Krylov getting knocked out in the first round by Robert Whittaker. Gable Stevenson getting an early finish. Adrian Yanez money line, and throw in Damian Penis to round it out. We'll round it out with the Penis. I think it's a great fight card. I'm really excited for it, and I hope that the boys can get it done and keep us in our winning ways. Next week, we have Duplessis versus Usman, which is a very fun one, and there's some really good fights on that card, too, so I'm excited for it. We have a good stretch here, and I appreciate y'all. Thank you for watching. I love you guys. Patreon is coming very soon. I'm building the back catalog. I've got a few articles on there now, some bonus episodes, etc. And I'm going to keep doing that so that you can enjoy it. I love you guys. Thank you so much and have a lovely day. Enjoy the rest of the World Cup. Peace out.